According to the three-wage agreement signed by the government with public sector unions in 2018, the lowest paid civil servants, which is general workers and support staff, were going to receive a wage increase of inflation plus 1% from yesterday, the 1st of April 2020. Supervisors, managers and directors would have received an increase of inflation plus 0.5%. Now, the unions say the government has failed to honour the agreement.
This is the projected CPI, which is 4.4%, and therefore they are then supposed to come back to us in a letter, not even in a meeting, in the form of a gazette, and say, for education, for the police, for the general public servants, these are the translation from where you were today and where you will be on the 15th of April. So that did not happen.
On Tuesday, the Minister of Public Service Administration, Senzo Mchunu, issued a statement saying government was committed to implementing the 2018 wage agreement. But he said further talks with the unions needed to take place. This as the government intends to cut the public sector wage bill by 160 billion rand over the next 3 years.
So the letter basically is quite confusing, but obviously it's also misleading because it says we want to implement, but we don't want to implement. So what is it that the government wants at the end of the day to these hardworking public servants who really are at the forefront and the front line now fighting the spread of the coronavirus, and therefore there's an employer that is so unconscious, so insensitive to the sacrifices and the compromises that the labor has made over the time, and in particular in 2018.
With the dispute having been declared by COSATU unions, the Public Service Coordinating Bargaining Council will now appoint a commissioner to mediate between the parties, failing which the measure will go for arbitration. But COSATU unions say if that too fails, they will go to court. Strike action is being ruled out.
This is a dispute of right, and therefore it has to follow the legal route and not the other route of the strike and many other things. It has got to follow strictly the legal route where we have the court or the arbitrator enforcing the collective agreement. So we have not consulted our members about any form of action or any strike because we as the leadership are very clear in terms of what is permissible in terms of the collective agreement as it stands now.
Meanwhile, Trade Union Nehau says it's taking Health Minister Dr. Zweli Mkhize to court for refusing to discuss the provision of protective clothing to healthcare workers during the current outbreak of the coronavirus.
This afternoon we'll be serving the department with papers, with a plan or pray that we might go to court this evening or latest tomorrow because we are filing an urgent application. And what we are pleading really is that can we have an audience with the minister? And that audience that would have been provided by court should be an order of court so that all the discussions and the outcomes of that meeting are enforceable. Because we don't want just to go to a meeting for lamenting. We want to be concrete in terms of how we respond to the crisis of the shortage and so on.
So far, no health worker has been infected with the coronavirus while on duty. Bongene Mutwa, SABC News, Johannesburg. To talk further about the latest developments, we now welcome Mr. Ruben Malika from the Public Servants Association, a FEDUSA affiliate. Mr. Malika, thank you very much for joining us.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to the viewers.
Well, there's quite a lot going on. We've got corona. Now we've got a dispute being declared over wages by the COSATU affiliates. Nehau is taking the health minister to court. Quite a lot going on. As the Public Servants Association, where do you stand on these issues at the moment, starting with the dispute that has been declared now by the COSATU affiliates?
Look, first of all, we are very, very much discouraged by the stance taken by the Minister of Public Service Administration. We have, in the meantime, made all efforts to try to listen to him through the process of the PSABC. But we came to the conclusion that we realized that he's playing with weight. Instead of coming clear to say that he will implement or not implement, he keeps on saying that he's still committed to the resolution, but he still mentioned that he still has to go through the process of negotiations in the PSABC. We have a resolution in place that must be implemented. There's no point of negotiating a resolution. And hence we are saying that he must give us a commitment in writing on whether he will implement the Resolution 1 of 2018, Clause 3.3 in totality. And he's not coming out. It's not clear to say whether he's going to implement or not. Hence, as the PSA, we have taken a stance also to say that we will be approaching courts. Unfortunately, at this point in time, we are struggling with the courts. As you know, most of the courts are also in the lockdown process, and to reach out to the registrar is also a hassle. But we are ready with our court papers. We are ready to launch. We are prepared to see that the courts will rule in our favor and ensure that there is an implementation of salaries come what may. Because definitely we believe that the workers that are currently faced with this pandemic, the police, these correctional services officers, teachers, everybody that gives effort to the public is now being compromised by the stance taken by the DPSA for not implementing salaries. So we are not going to back down. We'll be approaching courts also.
Now, in 2 months' time, on the 15th of this month, April, it's going to be payday for public servants, a lot of them. Do we know exactly what's going to happen on that date?
At this point in time, we can actually be assured that there will not be any adjustment, because the normal procedure and process is that at least by today, we would have known that there is a difference in the payments or PESAL system. But getting for information from some of our shop stewards on the ground, there's no change in salaries, and there's not been even directives being issued. You know, normally the Public Service Administration will issue directives for departments to implement salary adjustment. Such has not been published by the minister as required by the Public Service Act. That indicates that he is not prepared to implement the resolution. Hence, we are saying that it's time not to continue talking to the minister, because seriously, he's now trying to hide behind many issues. He's trying now to say, but look at the Moody's have downgraded South Africa. Look at we are faced with the pandemic. And the issue of salaries has been discussed before even the Moody's and before the coronavirus. So we can't be the only government employees that are being faced to say, you must compromise, you must understand. Why must you understand if we have come with alternatives to say that how they must save? We all know 2019 financial mismanagement that the Auditor General has actually highlighted is that government cannot account for 62.2 billion. So out of that, you want to save 15 billion by cutting salaries. We are saying they must actually be focusing on the say, but what must we do to recover 62.2 billion that we've lost, and how they must also stop the bleeding, instead of just saying that public servants must sacrifice. We are not going to sacrifice.
Just lastly and very briefly, because we are out of time, Mr. Maliga, I understand that the government, instead of offering nothing at all, they've put on the table 3.3%. Is that still not acceptable to you under all the circumstances that we understand are prevailing at the moment, the recession, the economy, the corona and everything? Is that not still not acceptable at all to you as the unions?
No, that is just a blackmail to public servants to try and hide behind all the factors that you have mentioned. We will be coming, in fact, we are saying that this must implement this resolution in totality, come this month, and by actually September, we'll be making fresh demands, because this resolution is coming to an end. Then all those factors that they are mentioning, I think is part of negotiations. Remember, negotiations is give and take, and we are willing to give and take come September when we table our new demands.
Mr. Maliga, thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
In other news, several local banks have announced measures to help cushion their distressed clients as a result of the coronavirus crisis. They range from payment holidays, free waivers for using ATMs of different banks, and providing assistance for small and medium businesses. The Reserve Bank has also cut interest rates by 100 basis points to provide some relief to indebted consumers and businesses.
The local economy is expected to contract by 2.7% this year. The COVID-19 crisis has worsened an already bad economic situation. With the lockdown and supply chain disruptions, many will lose their ability to earn an income, and some may lose their jobs. Standard Bank measures focused on easing the burden on mainly lower-income earners. The bank says their payment reprieve is aimed at easing the financial burden of customers earning 7,500 or less. These customers will receive 3-month installment relief if they are not in arrears on their loan accounts. The bank has also announced it will institute installment relief in both small and medium enterprises and full-time students who have taken out loans at the bank. FNB says it will implement measures to provide relief to individuals and business customers with sound banking behavior whose financial stability has been impacted by COVID-19. The bank says it will also offer assistance with processing credit insurance claims. ABSA says eligible customers in need of short-term liquidity relief will qualify for the relief program. The relief measures apply to ABSA corporate, wealth, business bank, and private bank and retail customers. The bank says customers who have been financially impacted by the pandemic will have the opportunity to opt in for payment relief aimed at assisting with cash flow needs. Nedbank says it has asked its clients to contact them to discuss their individual circumstances rather than a one-size-fits-all approach. The Reserve Bank has cut the repo rate by 100 basis points to 5.25% per annum. This pushes down the prime lending rate by banks to 8.75%. The Reserve Bank says as the financial markets have come under increased pressure with the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic, it has observed liquidity strains in various funding markets and has reviewed its liquidity management strategy. The bank says the standing facilities borrowing rate, the rate at which the central bank absorbs liquidity, will be adjusted to the benchmark repo rate less 200 basis points from the current repurchase rate less 100 basis points. Other measures the central bank has introduced include the purchase of government bonds on the secondary market. Lora Sefakomosi, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Well, that's it from me. It's goodbye, and the program continues after the break.